South Louisiana. So I'm going to just try to kind of keep it simple. I'm not going to try to get too detailed. If you want more detailed information, I'll give you a few websites that you go to. You can ask me questions and I can do the best I can to give you detailed information. I know the information. I hadn't certified in a while. And that's kind of what this first slide is. It's a USDA program. Of course, their state departments of agriculture certify operations, but it's more than just state departments of agriculture. And in fact, the Louisiana Department of Agriculture is no longer certifying organic operations in Louisiana. And if you go to Mississippi, neither is Mississippi. Both commissioners of agriculture in those two states decided that due to the cost of the program and the lack of interest, you could say, by growers, there just wasn't enough growers to support programs in those two states. Texas is still certifying operations in Texas as certified organic. And if you look at the program, it started out as the organic standard was different across the United States pre-2002. You had people certifying organic people in California, you had people certifying organic operations on the East Coast, West Coast, and they all had different standards. And there was some demand by the public to say we want one standard in the United States. So when we buy an organic product in the marketplace, we know how it was produced, or somewhat know how it was produced. So what USDA did, they drafted some regulations and they came up with a United States standard. Well, when they did that, again, there was already many people doing organic, certifying organic. They couldn't exclude those private certifiers out there on the East and West Coast and all around. So they allowed them to continue to certify. And they came up with a whole other set of regulations that said number one, people that are producing organically need to go by certain regulations, and the people that are certifying the people that do organic have to go through some regulations. So, and that's where the cost structure came in. And in fact, for the Louisiana Department of Agriculture to certify operations, it was costing us $10,000 every 3 years, plus about $2,000 to $3,000 a year just to be able to do that. So we had to pay USDA, I guess in the neighborhood of, I don't know, between $5,000 and $10,000 a year to be able to certify operations in Louisiana. Same thing in Mississippi. That's why those two commissioners and other commissioners in the United States decided they didn't want to do that anymore because it just wasn't worthwhile. Let me make sure I'm covering all my stuff on here. The rule came about over the 1990s into 2000. In 2002, they finally drafted and put the rules in place. And when that happened, it became a national certification. I don't like standing behind this podium. If y'all don't mind, I'm gonna get. I think my voice is loud enough for y'all to hear. No, all right. But so what happened was, if foreign countries want to supply the United States with organic produce, they can do that, and they're doing it right now. We have organic vegetables and fruits and stuff coming in from all over the world. So what that means is you have certifiers going to Australia and South America and Egypt and wherever, certifying organic crops in those countries. And those countries are selling into the United States. And because they're selling into the United States and they're making claims that their product is organic, they have to meet the USDA standard. So since some people are certifying there, USDA is flying all around the world checking on those operations and checking on operations that are checking on those operations. So it's really become almost a worldwide type program, and it's kind of crazy to tell you the truth. But you know, people want organic, and so USDA stepped up to the plate and said we're going to give it to you. Well, let me move on and get us on track here. When you look at organic is a, and I put on here to make sure it's a regulated term. So if you put organic on your label, so if you have pecans, you have shell pecans, and you sell them in a bag or whatever, and you put the term organic on there, even though truly pecans are organic, they can't be anything but organic. But if you put the name organic on there, then USDA assumes that you produce them organically and you have to follow the rule. So you can't put organic on your label now in the United States. If you're producing an agricultural product, and that's kind of the key here, an agricultural product, it has to be produced in accordance with those rules and regulations. And if you think about it, I've had some people call, well, you know, I want to sell, I don't know, organic mulch or organic fertilizer, whatever. That's something completely different. The rule applies to only, and I think that's on the next slide, that agricultural product is for human or livestock consumption. So if you're producing products that aren't for human or livestock production, we're not going to certify it for you. You can claim organic all day long, USDA doesn't care. But if you're going to eat it, or a cow, calf, or eat a pig or whatever, and you want to claim it as organic, it has to follow the rule. And when we say organic or agricultural products, fruits, vegetables, cows, calves, pigs, chickens, eggs, cheese, anything that is an agricultural product or comes from an agricultural product, if you want to claim it as organic, it has to follow the whole rule. And there's a big definition for organic production, and it's long and written out, and it can be gray and black and white and all over the board. It's a hell of a rule, to tell you the truth. And when they gave me the responsibility to do it in Louisiana, and I read the rule, and man, how am I going to regulate this? And it's a challenge. And I guess I'll say this right now. It's really an honor system, to tell you the truth, folks. Because if you want to claim organic and you want to say, I want to be certified organic, and you become certified, nobody's going to sit there and watch you your whole time. So it's almost an honor system that you're going to follow the rules, because you can do a lot of things that a certified will never catch you doing, like putting out fertilizers or spraying insecticide. You shouldn't be doing it. It's against the rule. But again, all we can do is do inspections over time and hope that you'll be following the rule when we're not on the form. I mean, so technically, like I said, it's an honor system. But if you want to read this big definition, it's all about integrating cultural, biological, mechanical practices, fostering the cycling of resources, promoting ecological balance. It's a whole bunch of nice, pretty terms. But the big thing is no synthetic substances can be used, meaning you can't use Roundup. You can't use Sevin dust. You can't use, like some people say, oh, I'm just using some dishwashing detergent or something. You can't use any of that stuff. If it's a man-made product, you cannot use it on that crop. You just can't do it, because the term organic, all natural. It has to be all natural. Now, I will say this. When you're processing a commodity, like you bring it into your facility and you're packaging it, you're loading it, it's coming across tables, whatever, you can use synthetic substances in that case. You can use bleaches, you can use alcohols to clean your containers, to clean your tables, to clean your bags, whatever. What USDA did not want to do, they did not want to create a product that now might have some biological contaminants on it. So they allow disinfecting type synthetics, and those are the only things that you can use. And you can only use them when you're kind of packaging and processing. You can't spray them on the crops themselves. So the only synthetics allowed are, again, alcohols and bleaches like that to clean equipment. Synthetic substances, like I said, anything that's man-made, anything that's chemically produced is considered a synthetic substance, and it can't be used. Ammonium nitrate, urea, all of that stuff, 13, 13, 13, none of that is allowed. If you want to fertilize your crop, you basically have to use manures, chicken litters, cow manure, horse manure, green cover crops. You can plant legumes and stuff in your orchard. So you can use that type of stuff. In fact, they encourage all of that. And I want to be clear on chicken litters. A lot of people think, well, we have to use chicken litter from organic chickens. No, you don't. You can use chicken litter from any chicken house. But because it's natural. I mean, it comes from a process, and as long as you don't do anything with it, and you take it right from that chicken house and put it down, you can use it. Now, it can't come with synthetic substances. So some chickens are fed certain things in their diet, and it might end up in the chicken litter, chicken manure. So what happens is, when you want to use chicken litter, normally what you have to do is you have to do an analysis to make sure there's no residues of synthetic products on that chicken litter. And even some chicken houses spray their chicken litter to control flies. So if they're doing that, then you would not be able to use the chicken litter. But most chicken litter today it's not sitting in piles behind the chicken houses anymore, because there's so many people that want it conventional and organic. So normally it gets swept out of the chicken house, and as soon as it hits the ground, somebody's picking it up and hauling it somewhere. So chicken litter is allowed. You have to, now there are rules on how you can use it. You have to put it out at certain times between when you're going to pick that crop, especially if the crop is grown in the ground, or that crop is grown above ground. Say if you put chicken litter on potatoes, which potatoes grow in the ground. If you put chicken litter out, you have to put it out 120 days before you harvest the potatoes. If you put it out on a crop that grows above the ground and that does not contact the ground, you can put out 90 days prior to that crop was harvested. Now, pecans, it's kind of a weird crop. It's going to hit the ground. So probably I would think USDA would rule that since it's going to hit the ground and it might come in contact with some chicken litter, you probably have to put it out 120 days prior to that pecan hitting the ground. There was some discussion, because I did certify a guy a few years ago who had Angus. He had Angus cattle, and in his pastures he had pecan trees. And he wondered about cattle manure being in the pasture and the pecans being certified organic. So he called Washington and asked them, because it's hard to get answers out of Washington, but he finally called somebody to answer this question. They said, don't worry about it. So he wasn't worried about it because technically he was probably supposed to have worked that cow manure into the ground, incorporated prior to the pecans hit the ground, but they just felt like it wasn't a concern, especially since pecans are then picked up, then they're shelled, and so it's not like you're eating the pecans right off the ground and there's a crop. But I would still say, depending on who you talk to in Washington, it could be a different answer. So let me move on to the next slide here. Okay, in terms of crop production, this is kind of the big kicker. If you want to be certified and you've used synthetic substances on your property, you got to wait 3 years from the last application date. So say like this year, you fertilized with ammonium nitrate or urea, or you sprayed something this year, you'd have to wait 3 crop seasons from this year before you could truly claim those pecan trees as being organic. And you have to do that with proof of records, and you have to sign off and get it notarized that, no, I have not put anything on my ground in the last 3 years. So technically, if I want to claim my pecan orchard organic this year, I stopped 3 years ago and I'm claiming it as organic. You got to establish buffer zones. If you're like we was mentioned earlier today about if you're growing pecans near conventional fields of soybeans, corn, cotton, whatever, you're going to have a zone around your farm that somewhat protects you from drift, because we know drift occurs. And in fact, I'm talking to the lady a few years ago in Texas. They had certified a pecan orchard somewhere in Texas, and the guy was doing fine. He was following all the rules and regulations, but he had, I don't know if it was cotton or corn or whatever nearby. There was applications of different synthetic pesticides being applied to those conventional crops. So they started checking his vegetation. They would pull foliage and they would do pesticide residue analysis on his pecan trees. And every year they found residues of whatever had been sprayed. And his pecans were fine, but they had a residue of some insecticide or some fungicide that was being applied. He wasn't applying, but it was being applied around him. And he couldn't control it. I think they collected residue samples for like 3 to 5 years, and he never could. He always had residues. So they finally had to pull his certification because he could not control the drift on his pecans. So therefore, he had pesticide residues on his pecans, and because he had that, even though he wasn't applying himself, he could not be certified organic anymore. So that's why they have this specific rule in place that says you have to have a buffer zone to take that into effect. And that buffer zone can be 100 feet, it can be 200 feet, it can be 50 feet, depending on who your neighbor is. You have to minimize soil erosion and maintain soil conditions. It's all in the rule. It's all very, I guess, general in nature. But you have to have a plan in place that addresses all that stuff. You have to do rotations and cover crops. In fact, I had a guy that was growing corn, and USDA actually woke me up because I was certifying. They said I allowed him to grow corn over a number of years without rotation. But what he didn't have in his plan, he was truly rotating, because when he wasn't growing the corn, he would put cattle out on that field and basically put cattle across it. So it was a rotational scheme with cattle coming in one part of the year and corn in another part of the year. So they allowed that, and they took that non-compliance off of me and off of him. And also, if you're adding stuff like chicken litter, you can't contribute to environmental degradation and contamination downstream. So you can't put so much of that is washing off and causing problems for streams or neighbors around you. In terms of livestock production, I know y'all probably not into this, but I mean, I'm just going to throw it up there. Livestock is a whole nother animal. It really is. If you have a cow right now that's on a pasture, and that pasture is not organic, and that cow has had anything done to it in terms of antibiotics or fed conventional grain, the cow can never be organic. Yeah, unless it's a dairy cow, and then you have to feed it for a year before it can be, the milk can be considered. But the cow, the beef from that cow can never be organic. what you have to do is you have to back up. The cow can produce a calf that's organic, but that cow has to be managed for the last third of its gestation, the last third of its pregnancy. It has to be managed organically, means it has to be on organic pastures. If you feed it anything, it has to be certified organic feed. That last third of gestation, that last third of pregnancy for that calf to be considered organic. And when that calf hits the ground, it has to be on organic ground. The cow has to continue to be managed organically, all organic feed. You can't give it any antibiotics. It's very restrictive. You got to keep all of these records of you know, the cow and the calf and when it was born. It's a real pain in the butt, to tell you the truth. And most people don't fool with it, and it's not easy. It's not an easy thing. But there are people doing it, and there are people selling some pretty high-priced organic beef out there. And that's kind of what all of this is about, even pecans. I mean, I don't know what the price difference is between a conventional pecan and an organic pecan, but I'm sure the price is different. I don't know how much different it is. And if it's that much different, then you might want to consider it. I know in terms of beef, you got to go through a lot of hoops to get to that organic beef, but the price of organic beef is quite a bit higher. Whether it's that much different, I don't know. But people are paying it, they want to pay for it, so you know, if you want to fill that niche, go for it. I think I covered all of that slide pretty much. There's also a whole nother ball game of organic handling. So if you food it with coffee and you're roasting it, you're grinding it, you got to get a whole other certification. So technically, in a pecan situation, you would probably have to certify the pecan orchard, and then you would have to certify, if you're doing shelling too, you'd have to certify that operation too, because you're actually cracking it. It's going through some processes, it's being bagged, so that whole process would have to be certified too. And the reason they actually look closer at those types of operations is because they don't want you, say if your production is so much per acre, and when it goes out the back door, it's double what you produce on your organic form, then you got some pecans coming in the back door. So you got to go through audits. You got to go through what comes in the front door, what goes out the back door in terms of receiving and shipping and all of that. And it gets really, you have to keep a lot of records to prove that you're not taking some conventional product and labeling it organic in those handling operations. Plus, there's this whole thing about, I think that's my next slide maybe, that's just some certification basics, but they get real concerned about pest management facilities and how you spray for roaches and rats and how you controlling those pests in the facilities, and if that's impacting the organic nature of the produce that you're running through that facility. Because if it's being impacted, then you know now you've blown your whole certification system up. In terms of compliance, it's kind of an odd deal too. All compliance got to come out of Washington, D.C. So, as a certifying agent in Louisiana, when I was doing it, I could look at somebody maybe that wasn't in compliance. I could maybe collect information, and all that stuff has to be sent to Washington, D.C. And then some guy that they're going to contract out of some USDA office somewhere around the United States has to come knocking on the door and has to basically take the information I give him or you can give him. You can make calls on people that you think are claiming organic and not following the rule, and some USDA agent's going to come knocking, and he's going to do the investigation, and he's going to actually take this person and issue violations to them if that's the case. It's a very bureaucratic process, but I will say this: the people that I've met in the program, they get pretty crazy about it. I mean, you know, if they feel like you're breaking the rule, it's kind of crazy. So I just be prepared. If you want to do organic, you need to follow the rules. If they come knocking on the door, the fines can be steep, and these people are really serious about this program. It's kind of crazy, but that's where I am. I mean, my background wasn't organic. I got put on my desk and I had to do the program, so I did it. But I tried to do it in a practical, common sense kind of way. And I will say this: Washington, D.C., when they came audit us a few times, they didn't particularly like my common sense, practical kind of way of doing things. And they told me quite a few times. So that might be some of the reason why we're not into this. But some people are very serious about it, and it'll amaze you really well. There are some exceptions. If you have a small operation, you can make claims as long as you follow the rule. You don't have to be certified. And retailers, grocery stores, restaurants, as long as they take the product, they stick it on a shelf, or they don't do much to it, and they just basically maintain their organic status, then they don't have to be certified. They can say, that product on my shelf is an organic cabbage or organic tomato, and it's sitting on the shelf, and they're not doing anything that basically messes up its organic status, then they don't have to be certified. But they have to show you records that they bought it from this farm, wherever he is, and show records where they bought it, when they bought it, to prove that it is organic. They just can't stick anything on their shelf as organic. It's all about records, to tell you the truth, folks. And if you throw enough records at USDA, it seems to me, they just kind of back off real quick. Lots and lots of paperwork, and if it looks half decent, then it's good, which I didn't like. Key points. If you're doing a crop that needs seed, then you should be planting organic seed. You got to go buy organic seed if you can. In terms of a pecan orchard, you can plant conventional trees, but the rule says, and then it doesn't matter in a pecan orchard situation, you can't pick a pecan from it within that first year. So you're not going to be getting pecans off a pecan tree the first year anyway. But you can plant organic, you can plant conventional trees, and then manage that orchard from that point forward as an organic orchard. And whenever that tree produces, then those pecans can be considered organic. So the tree itself does not have to be organic. Now, in terms of crops, within annual crops like tomatoes and potatoes and all, that seed has to be organic if you can buy it. You have to keep a record of every input you put on it. If you put chicken litter, if you put natural insecticides like neem or natural pyrethrin, you got to keep a record of when you did it, how you did it, and that you tried other things before you did that. All activities have to be down. I mean, every activity you have has to be on there. You have to have something growing in the field. A lot of people say, I want to be certified organic. You don't have anything growing in the field. Well, I can't certify if you don't have anything growing in the field. So, good field maps. You got to have buffer zones, and like I said, you got to have some documentation with your neighbors to tell them, look, I'm organic, and you need to be careful around my place. This is some of the stuff I saw when I was out certifying folks around Louisiana. I had a guy who wanted to be certified, and he had a rough operation. He wasn't doing much at all, to tell you the truth. And I found old pesticide containers he was using for jugs. He just wasn't doing much. Because since I'm not doing anything organic, but that was the case, especially when I found those 13 bags on the headland down there where he just planted some crops. So he said, oh, those have been sitting out there at least 5 years, and he hadn't used them. He hadn't used any fertilizer in the last 5 years. And I said, well, I don't know. I find it hard to believe that I can find a bag on the headland and you hadn't used it in 3 years. So he didn't get certified. He wasn't happy. He called the commissioner, and the commissioner said, well, you know, I showed the commissioner all this, which is I had my word about it, and he went away. So, but I will say this, you know, I tried to do it right. If I found something that looked wrong, you know, I didn't just back away and look the other way. You know, we looked into it. And if you want to know anything about organic, you can go to the USDA NOP website. The NOP stands for National Organic Program. You punch in NOP on a search mechanism, and USDA is going to bring you right to the site. I had one operator, a certified organic operator, that said, he didn't say NOP, he said nope. And basically, nope, you can't use that, nope, you can't do that, you can't do that. So it's a lot of nopes in the system. You know, I thought that was funny, nope. Yeah, you call it nope up. I said, yeah, you're right. And I think that might be it. And you're not required to be certified. You can do it organically. You can do it organically all day long. You don't have to be certified. A lot of people say, well, you know, you need to be certified first. So no, you don't. Just go be organic if you want to be organic. If you want that extra premium price that you might get, then become certified. But you can do it organically. That's all I have. I can give you information on products you can use and all of that, but like I said, basically you can't use anything synthetic. And I would say in a true commercial pecan operation, you don't have to use anything. You might not pick as much as you normally pick, but you know, and that's how some people operate. And if that's why you operate, then technically you can be certified organic. Thank you.